Starting off the list at number 10 is Monique. It has been a year since the actress rocked the industry by going head to head with Netflix, saying that she didn't get paid what other comedians did for her comedy special. Things went as far as Monique demanded a boycott against Netflix and turned down the $500,000 they offered her for the special. I'll take that $500,000. Amy Schumer got $13 million for hers, to put it into some perspective for you. So I guess, yes, that is a big difference. Long story short, she caused a huge controversy saying that she didn't get paid as much because she was black. She then went on to insult about 80% of fellow entertainers in the industry who weren't supportive of her claims. And that is when the queen of daytime TV stepped in, Oprah. The two of them were once like family, pretty much best friends, but had an issue back in 2009 after Oprah brought Mo's family on her show without her consent. She ended up bringing her mom and her brother, who Monique has openly accused of sexually assaulting her, so obviously there was a lot of beef there. They were able to work things out, but when it came to these more recent scandals with Netflix and the rest of Hollywood, Oprah called Monique negative during an interview, and she clapped back at Oprah, calling her a coward. We haven't heard much from her ever since, and she hasn't acted in anything since 2016. So girl, where are you at? Where are you hiding? Next up at number 9 is Jared Fogle. If you don't recognize him by just his name, he was that guy that was pretty much in every Subway commercial. He was literally the pitch man for the entire company, like that was his actual job. He got the sweet gig after losing a significant amount of weight with the help of Subway sandwiches. His weight loss story led him to being the spokesperson for all of their advertising campaigns from the years 2000 all the way until 2015. We saw his face everywhere, but then all of a sudden that quickly changed and he basically went into hiding. But once we found out why, it made sense. Some people might have noticed that he was no longer the face of Subway and questioned why, until headlines came out saying that he was charged for child pornography and paying for sex with minors. He pleaded guilty to his charges and was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His attorneys argued that he should only have a 5-year sentence since the girls he had sex with were 16 and 17 years old, not young children. That did not work in his favor. Jared agreed to pay a total of $1.4 million in restitution to 14 different victims, and on top of that, the judge fined him $175,000. Since then, his disappearance is no longer a mystery, and he is now behind bars. Coming in at number 8 is Stacey Dash. You probably know her as the actress from the iconic movie Clueless. She was blacklisted a few years ago after her political views cost her her entire career. She's a conservative who was clever enough to write a book on her blacklisting experience and called it "There Goes My Social Life From Clueless to Conservative." It all happened by one simple tweet. During the Barack Obama election, she tweeted out, "Vote for Romney, the only hope for your future." She said she tweeted it out because she didn't want Obama to have another 4 years, they were her beliefs, and she was sticking by them. But when she woke up the next day, everything was different. She spoke about it during an interview in 2016 and said, "I've been blacklisted, my agents have dropped me, I haven't auditioned in over a year because my beliefs and what I stand for." After that, she disappeared from Hollywood basically. We stopped hearing about her, but the mystery of her disappearance ended just 2 days ago. She was back in the headlines, but this time it was because of her mugshot. Turns out she was arrested for domestic battery after an incident with a male. So things are not looking too good for her.
In at number 7, Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen just recently has fired 3 of her most problematic producers that had allegations of abuse against them. However, I highly doubt that this action will end up redeeming her in any way whatsoever. Thanks to that Kevin Porter tweet, thousands upon thousands of people have come to the realization that Ellen certainly has a mean streak. Part of what keeps people working in Hollywood can largely be attributed to how easy they are to work with. Now with Ellen having this long rap sheet of complaints, it's hard to imagine that Hollywood won't keep her off their blacklist of celebrities. That being said, Hollywood's blacklist is more like a timeout until the bad press blows over, and then they usually try to bring these celebrities back into the fold again. I mean, look at how off the rails Mel Gibson went, and he's still acting here and there, right? Mel Gibson's still acting, right? He did some bad stuff.
And at number 6 is Roseanne Barr. The actress once had her own ABC show titled after her, Roseanne, which is why it is such a shame that she lost it all by another single tweet. People are losing their careers over Twitter. Maybe it is time to delete your account. Besides her work, she's also known for being a Trump supporter, which of course has caused her some controversy. However, it was a specific tweet back in May 2018 that had her career spiral out of control. Her tweets were about Valerie Jarrett, a senior advisor to the former President Barack Obama. In her tweet, she compared Valerie to the cross between the Muslim Brotherhood and the movie Planet of the Apes. ABC cancelled her show immediately, which was supposed to reboot the same day, coincidentally. As of January of this year, her Twitter was off limits and she moved into her mother's basement in order to get out of LA. She said that she was worried that everyone hated her and just wanted to avoid the public eye. We haven't heard or seen much from her, but the paparazzi is still trying. A more recent image surfaced a few months ago of Roseanne looking all disheveled outside of her home in Salt Lake City, Utah. Apparently she was trying to take a picture of the paparazzi's license plate. She looks like a damn hot mess. Halfway through the list at number 5 is Richard Stanley. Now this man isn't well known to some, but his story of disappearance is really interesting. If you've ever heard of the movie The Island of Dr. Moreau, he was the director and got himself fired just 3 days into production. According to the Telegraph, he was supposed to be escorted onto a flight from the set in Australia and fly back to Los Angeles, but when the plane arrived at LAX, he wasn't on it. Some of the extras from the movie ended up finding him a month later living in the jungle. Turns out he left the airport and made his way through the jungle by living off of coconuts, yams, and his personal marijuana stash. No, this is not a joke. What's even crazier is that he teamed up with the extras to create a plan to get back onto the movie set by dressing up as a mutant dog and blending in with the background actors. Like what? I know this story doesn't sound real, you guys, but it is. I swear. Like the source is down below. Here we are number 4 with Paula Deen. For years you would have seen her face plastered all over the Food Network. This was until a lawsuit was filed against her by Lisa Jackson, accusing the celebrity chef of racial discrimination. Lisa is Paula's former general manager at one of her restaurants, so they were once very close. She claims that Paula was using the N-word when talking about African Americans. She was asked during an interview if she has ever used this word, and her response was, "Yes, of course, it's just what they are, they're jokes. Most jokes are about Jewish people, rednecks, black folks. I can't determine what offends another person." After her statement, networks canceled her TV programs worldwide and stores even stopped selling her products. She disappeared from the public eye for a while, but was recognized once again after making insensitive comments about another Food Network star that passed away. Chef Carl Ruiz died at the age of 44, and many celebrity chefs posted beautiful tributes in his honor. However, while appearing on the Big J show, she was asked about his death, and her response was, "I'm not familiar with him, but I'm sorry to hear that. You know, they say the restaurant business will kill you. No pun intended." She laughed it off, but no one was laughing with her, and just when you thought she might get off the blacklist, she done did it again. Dug herself a deeper hole.
In number 3, Jake Paul. Saying that Jake Paul is a menace to society would be the understatement of the year. This guy was even once crowned as the reality villain for the YouTube generation by the New York Times. To add to his Scarface image, if you will, was the recent raid on his home by the FBI. At just 23 years old, his YouTube channel is just filled with pure stupidity. Paul's early involvement in the Hollywood scene was with the show Bizarre, but after he was fired by Disney, his life became pranks, vlogging, and jumping on news vans. The LA Times reported that his house was raided by the feds after he was found to be in direct connection with the looting investigation in Arizona. Although the police didn't come out with any stolen goods, they did find a ton of firearms. Like a ton. Including this assault rifle that was just leaned up against his hot tub. There is no doubt in my mind that Hollywood will never hire this guy again, and on top of that, he has to be blacklisted by now.
Taking second place on our list is Lelaine, the adored Disney star from the hit TV series Lizzie McGuire. Fans started questioning where she went when she didn't show up in the final episodes of the series, and when they didn't see her return for the Lizzie McGuire movie either. In the movie, they said her character was on a family vacation in Mexico, but the real reason she went missing is because she was actually arrested and pled guilty to the possession of crystal meth. Somehow she managed to keep it all hidden during the time that it was going on. It actually wasn't until she had a warrant out for her arrest that it made headlines. She was charged with a felony after not showing up for her court appearance. After her legal issues were all sorted out, she went on to work a regular job in LA where she said it just paid the bills. It was recently announced that Lizzie McGuire was coming back with a reboot, so fans are wondering if maybe she will be making a return. Is she going to be invited? Will she say yes? We're gonna have to wait and see. Taking our number 1 spot is Richard Simmons. The hilarious exercise guru taught his last exercise class in 2014, and we haven't seen him ever since. Like literally, he walked out of the Beverly Hills studio and wasn't seen publicly for over 3 years. A podcast was created called Missing Richard Simmons, which claimed that he was being held hostage in his Hollywood Hills home by his housekeeper, or that he was possibly transitioning into a woman. Rumors started spreading, but his brother Lenny Simmons came forward with a statement saying, I quote, "He's not sick. These things about him transitioning into a woman are ridiculous. After 40 some odd years, he just decided that he wants to rest, he wants time to himself." The only reason he ever found himself blacklisted was because of his choice to leave and how he went about it, without any explanation at all. Fitness friend Billy Blank said in June 2019 that he thinks Richard will be making a comeback, but Richard's representative declined to comment on it. I mean, he's 70 years old now. Let the man rest. Starting off the list at number 10 is Jaquan. He made a name for himself in the music industry after rapping about everybody in the club getting tipsy. You remember? Everybody in the club get tipsy. What's the next part? Something like that, right? I don't remember, something like that, but you guys remember that was his song. Anyways, his career was on the rise the same way his songs were on the charts, but then he disappeared from the music world and the public eye altogether. His own friend and manager, Dorian Washington, revealed in March 2010 that he kept trying to call and email him and hadn't seen him since August 2009. His label issued a statement asking fans to help locate the rapper. They even set up a special Twitter account called @WhereIsJaquan. After all the chaos, his manager finally wrote a statement saying, "I am very happy to let everyone know that I personally spoke with Jaquan today and he is okay. He was taking some time to himself as he sometimes does, not realizing that people would start to worry after a while." How could you not realize something like that? At least just tell your family. Coming in next at number 9 is Amanda Bynes. It is not a secret that she went off the handlebars back in 2012 with behavior that ended with her on Hollywood's blacklist. Just a few examples to refresh your memory. She was arrested for drunk driving, charged with a hit and run, locked herself in a West Hollywood dressing room for 2 hours, got thrown out of an Equinox after removing her shirt and exercising in a strapless push-up bra, and photographed multiple times smoking unknown substances in her car. These headlines kept her in the limelight for a while before she basically vanished. She was out of the public eye completely and people wondered what had happened to her. Turns out she ended up getting admitted into a mental institution where she worked on her sobriety and spent some years working out all of her legal issues. Fans were thrilled to see her make a return last year in 2018 with a magazine cover story saying that she is sober and ready to get back into acting. At number 8 is Dave Chappelle. Comedy fans saw him everywhere in the early 2000s when he was starring on his comedy show Chappelle's Show. The entire show was headlined by him and he had some other comedian guests to help him out. His series was successful, being nominated for an Emmy and catching the eyes of other rival networks. His representatives went to negotiate a contract for season 3 and later reported that Dave, I quote, signed a new development deal with Comedy Central that could have yielded him as much as $50 million. After that headline made news, he went missing. No one knew what happened to him or the show and how he could just walk away from a $50 million contract. Fans later learned that he was in South Africa attending a spiritual retreat. He continued to remain in hiding and focus on his personal life until he made a successful return back in 2016. Sliding into number 7 spot is James Franco. The reason why he landed himself on the blacklist is really no surprise anymore. It was in the news for a while and I have talked about it a handful of times on this channel, but for those who aren't familiar with the story, I will sum it up for you. It all started back in 2014 when screenshots surfaced of him trying to rent a hotel room for him and a 17-year-old girl who he knew was underage, and screenshots show that. Of course, when the screenshots broke the internet, people were disgusted and we thought we would never hear from him again. But surprisingly, his career continued on after the scandal faded out. All was good in the hood until 2018 when he showed up to the Golden Globe Awards wearing a Time's Up pin. The pin was designed to show support for women who are victims of sexual assault and harassment, but a variety of women started tweeting accusations of sexual misconduct and assault in reference to his pin. They literally started tweeting out stories of how he sexually assaulted them and hashtagged it #CuteTimesUpPin. Since then, he's been completely MIA. We haven't seen him on the big screen and he deleted all of his social media accounts. Anything on his IMDb accounts are small projects that he has produced himself on his own budget. His most recent project, Zeroville, just came out and it's the first time we are seeing him acting in years. However, it's already been titled the biggest box office flop of 2019, earning just $8,000 on its opening weekend in the US. Yikes. Swiping the number 6 spot is Governor Mark Sanford. I feel like the governor counts as a celebrity. Right? I mean, like, he's really well known. Regardless, he's on this list, and back in 2009, he was the governor of South Carolina. People were completely thrown off when he suddenly disappeared for 6 days without telling anyone where he went. I feel like if you're a governor, you can't do that. After the first 6 days, he started telling people that he was going on a hike on the Appalachian Trail. However, he was really going to Argentina to visit his mistress, a woman named Maria Belen Chapur. Once the story surfaced, he admitted to his secret affair and returned to the US and asked for forgiveness. Well, he kinda begged for it. And for those wondering, after the disappearance mystery was solved, his marriage did fall apart. As it should.
In at number 5, Shane Dawson. I'm sorry for dragging these people through the mud repeatedly. Like, Shane Dawson is a perfect scenario for this, especially for this channel. We talk about Shane Dawson all the time. But if Shane doesn't fit this list, then I don't know who else does. Shane had quite the blow up recently that led to the demise of his career on YouTube and in the world of cosmetics and probably any potential for Hollywood. That door has been shut. After partnering up with Jeffree Star, who was just meant to be another one of his documentary vlogs, the two started causing trouble together. They manipulated Tiny Westbrook into fighting with James Charles and then played the victim when people found out. Then on top of that, tons of Shane's older content had come back to bite him right when all of his beauty drama started. If you want to watch a full top 10 of everything that he did that led to the end of his career, definitely check out our list on the top 10 times Shane Dawson went too far.
Here we are at number 4 with Randy Quaid. He was once an Academy Award nominee actor before he disappeared from the limelight. In 2010, his disappearance started making headlines, revealing that he and his wife, Evie Quaid, fled to Canada to try and make a deal with a group called Hollywood Star Whackers, who allegedly were out to kill them. But on their escape to Canada, they got involved in some illegal activities. They used fake credit cards to pay for hotel bills, and also lived in one of their former homes, which they no longer owned or had rights to. According to CNN, they were granted permission to stay in Canada in 2011. His wife was able to get her Canadian citizenship because her dad was born in Canada, but Randy's request was denied in 2013. The actor was finally detained by Canadian immigration officials in October 2015 and was set to be deported back to the US later that month. However, he and his wife were arrested for trying to sneak back into the US through Vermont. So it's basically just a big show. Everyone always runs off to Canada because we're so nice over here. We'll just let you come in. Taking the number 3 spot on our list is J.D. Salinger. Everyone who went through high school had to read the book The Catcher in the Rye, which was written by a famous author, J.D. Salinger. He sadly passed away in 2010 at the age of 91, but before that, his career took a turn and he went into hiding after being blacklisted, but we never even knew. In 2013, 2 authors named Shane Salerno and David Shields published a book called Salinger, which revealed the author's crazy life and uncovered some very heartbreaking stories. Turns out he actually never spoke about his time in the World War II, and he ended up checking himself into a mental institution after leaving to help him deal with what he had witnessed in the war. Once he left the institution, he actually went back into the army and participated in the denazification of Germany. But because of this, there were times that some of his books were turned down. Publishers turned him down because they thought that he was crazy. Shane Salerno said during an interview, "Being told that he was crazy was a great wound to him. In fact, he teared up in the room and was deeply, deeply hurt." They said that the effects of the war and being turned down as a writer sent him into this life of isolation. He disappeared from everyone and went on to live a very private life. Honestly, after hearing this story, I feel like I really underappreciated the whole Catcher in the Rye book. I hated reading that. I'm pretty sure I didn't. I probably did those things where you googled the notes and it sums it up for you. Taking our number 2 spot on our list is Casey Kasem. The legendary radio host of American Top 40 suddenly went missing and his children reported it to the police, saying that they could not find him. It was then in May 2014 that the judge ordered that his whereabouts be disclosed. The order was made because his daughter Carrie was named his temporary conservator. She had expressed fear that he was taken by his wife Jean, who had an ongoing battle with the entire family. The radio host was suffering from Lewy body disease, and Carrie thought her mom took him out of the country or to an Indian reservation to seek treatment. A missing persons report was filed with the Santa Monica police, but he was reported to be found in the state of Washington not long after. Sadly, he died a month later at the age of 82, and his family drama continued on long after his death, still making headlines. At number 1 is D.B. Cooper. He only became famous for hijacking an aircraft in the Northwest United States back in 1971. TV show plots, songs, and books have all been based on the legend of this man for many years, including the movie Without a Paddle. The craziest part about the story is that he's actually an unidentified man. His real identity still remains a mystery to this day, so D.B. Cooper is just the name that he's been given. On Thanksgiving Eve back in 1971, he hijacked a plane saying he had explosives in his possession and demanded $200,000 and 4 parachutes in addition to a truck when they landed at the airport. Authorities did pay out the ransom and gave him the parachutes. However, before they got to the airport, he jumped from the plane 10,000 feet near Mount St. Helens in Washington state. He was never found, and in July 2016, the FBI declared that they were no longer pursuing him. So basically, he could be out there walking the streets right now. He could be watching this. Hi, DB.
In at number 10, Chris D'Elia. Actor and comedian Chris D'Elia just recently was part of the Netflix show called You. In the show, he played a comedian that was also grooming underage girls. Turns out he had just been method acting the whole time. D'Elia has been accused of grooming and attempting to solicit nude photographs from underage women. girls, I guess. A woman named Simone tweeted out a screenshot of her alleged interactions with Chris, which began a thread of other women sharing their interactions with him as well. The stories are all pretty horrific considering that these girls were all underage at the time that Chris had sent messages to them, and then on top of that, people close to him like Whitney Cummings have even spoken out against him. With the Me Too movement in full force, you'll be hard pressed to have any female actor, or anyone for that matter, wanting to work alongside him ever again. In at number 9, Danny Masterson. Danny, who is best known for his role as Hyde on That 70s Show, is recently charged with 3 counts of I don't even know if I could say that. The R word. So far, there have been 3 victims that have stepped forward with separate incidents that occurred between 2001 and 2003. All the alleged crimes are believed to have taken place at his home in the Hollywood Hills. If convicted, he's looking at a sentence of 45 years to life in a state prison. For those of you who don't know, Danny is also involved with the Church of Scientology. After the charges were laid against him, Liam Remini took to Twitter with joy that the victims of Scientology were finally being heard. This is most definitely an insinuation that the church had previously covered up what Danny had been doing in order to protect their image. Although we cannot confirm these claims, it does seem like something that they would do. Back in 2017, he was fired from the Netflix show called The Ranch amid these allegations, and he is still denying any of the claims made by these women, but with that much heat on him, it's unlikely that his acting career will ever continue. In at number 8, Jeffree Star. Jeffree Star has always been considered a bit of a controversial figure, but when he took over the world of cosmetics, the stakes were even higher. Although he has had plenty of feuds in the past, it was his beef with Laura Lee that became the most dramatic. To make matters worse for his career, Star wore cornrows on one of his Jeffree Star cosmetic campaigns, and the general public was less than amused. Not too long after that, fellow YouTuber Thomas Halbert made a video about racism in the beauty community and alluded to Star's involvement without mentioning his name directly. Jeffree then responded with text messages that he believed would clear his name, but in return Thomas exposed Star for blackmailing his friends, which just completely flipped the table and made it a whole new conversation about the kind of dirt that Jeffree might have on certain people. Apparently he had actually made a compilation video of YouTubers being problematic behind the scenes and would threaten to expose them if things didn't go his way. Well, now things are definitely not going his way, and he's for sure ending up on Hollywood's blacklist.
Next up at number 7 is Fan Bingbing. She is one of China's highest paid stars and was in the Hollywood spotlight in 2014 after she starred in X-Men Days of Future Past. Her face was everywhere and she was walking every red carpet to promote the film, but before we knew it, the media was reporting that she suddenly disappeared. Rumors started and were later confirmed that she was busted for committing tax evasion. The Global Times revealed that Fan reported an income of $1.5 million in a small contract and $7.5 million in a larger contract, which was illegally filed as tax-free income. She was placed in secret detention, which explains why she mysteriously disappeared out of nowhere, but she was eventually released after her company agreed to pay $130 million back in taxes and fines. Once she emerged back in the spotlight, she issued an apology saying, "I am deeply ashamed and guilty about what I have done. My sincere apologies to you."
In at number 6, Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett used to be known as the musician Jamal Lyon on the Fox drama series called Empire. At the start of January, he had gone to the Chicago police to report that he had been assaulted in the early morning hours. He claimed that 2 white men wearing MAGA hats attacked him in the middle of a polar vortex, I should mention that, and uttered racial and homophobic slurs at him. He then claimed that they poured bleach on him and tied a rope around his neck. Although after the police investigated the case, they found that Jussie had actually paid 2 Nigerian American brothers who worked as extras on Empire to help him stage this attack. Near the end of February, he was indicted for disorderly conduct for allegedly paying those brothers to stage the fake hate crime and therefore filing a false police report as a result. This scandal, however, ruined his chances with acting. In June of 2019, it was announced that Smollett would not be returning to the show even after his charges were dropped. Well, they reached a deal with the prosecutors, I should say. He had to pay his $10,000 bond and just do some community service, but he's on that Hollywood blacklist for sure.
Halfway through the list, number 5 is Brendan Fraser. 10 years ago, he was one of Hollywood's biggest stars, but then he suddenly disappeared. For 90s babies like me, you would know him from the Mummy franchise, George of the Jungle, and the Looney Tunes. After 2008, he disappeared from starring in big movie roles, and people started saying it was due to a drug addiction. But he finally came out with the truth years later, admitting that it had to do with an incident of sexual assault. He claimed that he was once physically groped by Philip Burke, a former president of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. Burke called the allegation a, I quote, total fabrication, but still sent Brendan an apology letter after the actor complained to the HFPA. Since coming out with his story, he has slowly been returning to some acting roles, but for the most part, he just lays low at his home in New York. He actually bought a big house that overlooks a farm and has spent the last year going back and forth between home and Toronto. He loves spending time with his horses and relaxing down his little dirt road. Definitely a big step back from the Hollywood lifestyle.
In number 4, Chrissy Teigen. Chrissy Teigen has been branded as the queen of cancel culture culture. She's become well known in the Twitterverse as always taking shots at Trump and siding with far-left politics. That being said, no one is perfect, and Chrissy Teigen is no exception from this rule of being a human being. Despite being married to John Legend, Chrissy has largely been cast on that new Quibi app that is just leaking money. I mean, they are bleeding money right now. That app is brutal, and it's not going to be around for very long. Nonetheless, her reason for being sort of shadow banned or blacklisted from Hollywood flicks could be attributed to the more than 60,000 tweets that she deleted. Seems a little fishy, doesn't it? I mean, flight logs showed that Chrissy had flown on Epstein's private jet to Little St. James, so as a result, the Twitterati came for her and her past tweets. People on Twitter connected her inappropriate tweets about the show Toddlers and Tiaras to the new evidence that she had visited Epstein's Island. In a bizarre series of tweets from 2011 to 2014, Chrissy tweeted about pizza, going to jail over pizza, and how she really loves watching children, specifically little girls, doing the splits. Really deplorable stuff right there. And I hope she's on Hollywood's blacklist.
Alright guys, at number 3 is Margot Kidder. She was a huge star back in 1978 after starring as Lois Lane in the Superman movie. But a missing persons report was filed after she disappeared for 4 days back in April 1996. No one knew what was going on until police found her hiding out in the bushes of a suburban California home. Police say that she was, I quote, dirty, frightened, and paranoid with bruises and scratches all over her body. She ended up being taken to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. When she was discovered, it was reported that she'd actually cut off all of her own hair with a razor blade to try and alter her appearance so that people wouldn't recognize her. She later spoke on the incident, saying that she suffered from manic depression and spent years working on it. Sadly, she did pass away on May 2018 at 69 years old as a result of drug overdose. This one didn't have a happy ending.
In number 2, Nick Cannon. After a recent episode of Nick Cannon's podcast called Cannon's Class, Viacom CBS decided to fire him after he promoted hateful speech and spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. In response, Nick said that he doesn't condone hate speech and his words were meant for the oppressive and racist infrastructure in America. Nick Cannon, best known for his marriage to Mariah Carey, also created the show Wild 'N Out. However, that show will be coming to an end after 15 seasons. You can tell that Nick is going to be blacklisted by Hollywood though after Viacom released this statement. While we support ongoing education and dialogue in the fight against bigotry, we are deeply troubled that Nick has failed to acknowledge or apologize for perpetuating anti-Semitism, and we are terminating our relationship with him.
At number 10, Taylor Lautner. Taylor Lautner has been having a rough time lately. He's pretty much disappeared from the media and people want to know what's up. Well, essentially he's been blacklisted from Hollywood because no one really wants to hire him. Since finishing up his time in the Twilight Saga, Taylor hasn't seen very much success. After the franchise ended, Taylor went looking for work, and at first people were ready to offer him some good Hollywood parts, and he was still a big name in the industry after he got so much fame playing his character Jacob Black in the Twilight movies, but soon Hollywood executives realized that he just wasn't the powerhouse that they were expecting. The first few movies he starred in tanked at the box office, and between this and his high asking salary, no one was really keen on taking a chance on the actor. In the years since, he's appeared on some TV shows like Scream Queens, but other than that, we haven't really heard much from him. Taylor has pretty much disappeared into the abyss, and there's no telling whether or not he will ever return. At number 9, Lea Michele. TV and Broadway actress Lea Michele had a tough time last year as she was on the receiving end of a lot of backlash. The criticism she faced last year came from her on-set behavior and the allegation made against her of bullying her co-stars. The first to come forward about Lea's bad attitude was her former Glee co-star Samantha Ware, who responded to her message about George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. Samantha tweeted saying, quote, "Remember when you made my first television gig a living hell? Cause I'll never forget. I believe you told everyone that if you had the opportunity, you would in my wig. Amongst other traumatic microaggressions that made me question a career in Hollywood," end quote. This prompted other people who have worked with her to come forward about their experiences working with Lea, and because of all the backlash she got, she was subsequently dropped by her sponsor HelloFresh because they didn't want to support her past actions and didn't want to align themselves with her. Now Hollywood knows about Lea's poor behavior and will probably disappear from the spotlight soon because of it. Now before I continue on with the video, I'd just like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video because we would really appreciate your support. At number 8, Hartley Sawyer. After all the scandals we've seen in the past, I'm sure we all know that sometimes your tweets can come back to bite you, and for actor Hartley Sawyer, his past tweets really went to town on him. After some of his past racist, sexist, and plain offensive tweets came to light earlier last year, Hartley was fired from his role as Ralph Dibny on the CW show The Flash. This comes after the Black Lives Matter movement began to gain traction last year, and so in a show of accountability and respect for those he offended, the showrunners released a statement informing fans of the show of their decision to let Hartley go, where they said, quote, "In regards to Mr. Sawyer's post on social media, we do not tolerate derogatory remarks that target any race, ethnicity, national origin, gender, or sexual orientation. Such remarks go against our values and policies, which strive and evolve to promote a safe, inclusive, and productive environment for our workplace." End quote. Since being fired from the show, Hartley's career has taken a huge hit since his actions have been brought to light, and he will definitely have a hard time finding work since he's considered blacklisted. We haven't heard much from him since this scandal happened, and that's probably because he's already disappeared.
In at number 7 is Chris Brown. The singer flew into a rage on the set of Good Morning America, so it's not all that surprising that they wouldn't want him back on their show. It was back in 2011 when the singer didn't like the question they asked him, so he decided to walk out during the middle of the on-air interview. But he didn't just walk out gracefully, he left the interview, went backstage, ripped off his shirt like the Hulk, and smashed a studio window. Tell me it's not a coincidence that all of this anger came from a question about his felony assault case against his ex-girlfriend Rihanna. I mean, dude, you're really not helping your case here by trying to show the world that you can control your anger. No offense.
At number 6, Stassi Schroeder. After facing accusations of racist actions, reality star Stassi Schroeder, one of the cast members of the Vanderpump Rules, has been blacklisted from reality TV and has already begun facing the consequences. This all started after Stassi was part of a fake police report that alleged that one of her fellow cast members, Faith Stowers, was guilty of a crime that she didn't commit. Faith, being the only black cast member on the show, was accused of robbing men in LA. Stassi accused Faith of this crime after seeing a picture of the alleged criminal and saying that this person in question looked like Faith because they were both black. Stassi was later removed from the show for her actions, and as a result of her blacklisting and tarnished reputation, her podcast Straight Up was removed from all platforms. Looks like Stassi's already disappearing, and it might not be too long before she's gone for good.
In at number 5, Gilbert Gottfried. With the way Godfrey performs, you would think this rude dude would be a repeat guest on the Howard Stern show. And the funny thing is, no one actually knows why Gilbert was banned from the show in the first place. Some believe that it was from an interaction with Stern's wife, while others think that Howard got sick of having him on. Although Gilbert didn't really seem to care, as you can see from his Instagram post. He also then would team up with fellow band guest Artie Lang to make this video trolling Howard Stern.
Artie and me on with Howard tomorrow. Oh, no. No, you know what? You can cut.
At number 4, Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry made headlines last year after they announced that they were stepping away from royal duties and would be splitting their time between the US and the UK. Meghan already faced a lot of backlash and scrutiny by the British people and members of the royal family, so in a way she was blacklisted from this society. Her relationship with the royals and her presence in the media, as well as details from her past, made a lot of people hold aggressions towards her. As a result of these circumstances, she and Harry, as well as their son Archie, took a step back from the public eye and their senior duties as members of the royal family. Meghan sort of disappeared from the public as a result, and though this is exactly the outcome that she hoped for, I'm sure it isn't easy being watched the way that she and the rest of the royal family is, so I applaud her for doing what is best for her and her family.
Rolling into our 3rd spot is Chevy Chase. He was once a big star from the original Saturday Night Live cast back in 1975. Actually, he was one of the first, but he is also the first cast member to ever get banned from the show. The good news is his ban came long after he had left the show on his own terms. He left the show after 2 successful years and then returned 8 different times to host Saturday Night Live. During his 8th time hosting though, he got officially banned from ever returning after he hit another cast member in the back of the head. I'm not laughing that he punched someone, I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous. Will Ferrell reported him after he apparently witnessed the physical assault. But over the years, he has gotten on better terms with the creator Lorne Michaels, and although he was banned from hosting, they did allow him back on the show for smaller appearances.
At number 2, Tekashi 6ix9ine. Rapper Tekashi 6ix9ine was seen as a snitch and a snake for a while after testifying against gang members and supportedly throwing people under the bus in order to get a lighter jail sentence. Well, now that he's out and making music again, he's feeling the repercussions of his tattered name in the media, as well as his time behind bars. Tekashi is now saying that he's been blacklisted by the music industry after his new music wasn't promoted on any streaming platforms and wasn't featured in any playlists. After dropping his album Tattletales, he wasn't met with the same praise that he would have expected, and so after realizing that his music has been in a way shadow banned, he disappeared from the spotlight temporarily since his career wasn't doing so well. Tekashi is known for trolling online So when fans noticed the rapper had gone MIA, they were a little bit concerned, but none more concerned than the rapper himself because he was afraid for his career. He seems to be slowly bouncing back now, but he still has a little ways to go yet before he can really pick up to where he was before his stay in prison. And finally, at number 1, Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp had quite the year in 2020 and not in a good way. As you may all know, Johnny and his ex Amber Heard were all over the news last year concerning Johnny's libel case with the Sun publication and their labeling of Johnny as a wife beater. After the verdict came through on this case, awarding the victory to the Sun, Johnny started feeling the repercussions of this loss. Though the world found out that Johnny was in fact a victim of violence rather than the one who was inflicting the violence, movie studios and executives still started letting Johnny go regardless. First, he was let go from his role as Grindelwald in the Fantastic Beasts films, and then we learned that he'd been blacklisted from Disney for a while as they refused to cast him in future productions. Now Johnny is susceptible to disappearing from Hollywood because of a loss of work. Though many of his fans are looking to keep his career alive and advocate for him, as far as Hollywood is concerned, he's too much of a risk, so unfortunately it's not looking good for the actor. But I, as well as many others, are optimistic that he will definitely come out on top in the end.
In at number 10, Martin Lawrence. On February 19, 1994, comedian Martin Lawrence was hosting Saturday Night Live. However, unbeknownst to the writers, he had adjusted his opening monologue a bit. As Lawrence went on about feminine hygiene in some very descriptive ways, Lorne Michaels was absolutely fuming. Following that live audible made by Martin, the monologue was then removed from all repeats and replaced with a voiceover instead. He was banned from ever hosting again, and Lorne would make sure that Martin would never even appear on the show, nor have his name mentioned by the cast. So essentially, Martin Lawrence is the Voldemort of Saturday Night Live. In at number 9, the Kardashians. Minutes after Khloe Kardashian tweeted this out, "I love Anderson Cooper, #SilverFox," Cooper said that if he could ban any guest, it would be the entire Kardashian family. While on Andy Cohen's show, Watch What Happens Live, Cohen and Cooper played a game called Plead the Fifth. The question posed to Anderson was, name one person you would ban from your show forever, and as I mentioned, the Kardashians were thrown quickly under the bus. Although Cooper said that it was all in good fun, we still have yet to actually see any of them appear on his show. Not that they have any political opinions they need to be spewing. In at number 8, Hugh Grant. While some accents may sound charming, Hugh Grant's personality canceled out any of that for Jon Stewart at The Daily Show. After appearing on the show, Jon Stewart said he was banning Grant for being a big pain in the ass. Stewart continued saying that he would never grant him back on the show, unintended. During an onstage Q&A, John remarked that they've had dictators on the show, but Hugh Grant was still his least favorite guest. Apparently, Hugh spent most of the day just complaining that he had to be there and even flat out said that he had better things to be doing, for which the staff of The Daily Show didn't really care to hear, nor did Stewart. So thanks to his high maintenance attitude, he was banned from the show with zero apologies.
At number 7, Lori Loughlin. Actress Lori Loughlin is known for her roles on Full House and Fuller House, but now she's known as yet another celebrity who's been blacklisted from Hollywood. Lori was involved in a college admissions scandal where she bribed college recruiters in order to get her daughter Olivia Jade into a good college. Well, after investigations unfolded and court proceedings went on, Lori was subsequently sentenced to 2 months in jail for her crimes. For a few months, she disappeared from Hollywood and the news as she spent her time behind bars. She began her sentence in late October, whereas her husband was sentenced to 5 months in jail. Now, coming out of the scandal, Lori will be hard-pressed to find work ever again. We already got a taste of Lori disappearing for a while, serving her time, so I'm sure she'll stay gone from Hollywood for the foreseeable future.
In at number 6, Vince Vaughn. While promoting his new movie, The Dilemma, they played a trailer on Ellen to promote the movie, and in the trailer was this line.
Ladies and gentlemen, electric cars, they're totally gay.
Yeah, he said that on Ellen, live. You gotta imagine the network executives were sweating when that aired. For a long time, Vaughn was banned from ever appearing on the show again. However, after many years had passed and probably a few phone calls apologizing, the pair have made amends, and he did come back on 7 years later.
Halfway through at number 5 is Kelsey Grammer. It appears as though Piers Morgan might throw bands around like it's no big deal, or maybe he's just a really hard guy to please. He slapped a lifetime ban on the Frasier actor after he appeared on Piers Morgan Live. What happened was, during his appearance, the network showed a photograph of his ex-wife, Camille Grammer, after they promised that the subject of his relationship would not be discussed on air. He responded to the photos by walking off set before he even made his full appearance. So they gave him a lifetime ban. Some people said it was a dramatic reaction, while others say the ban was a little over dramatic. So, what do you guys think? Which was the dramatic part? The reaction to the photos or the lifetime ban?
In at number 4, Jay Leno. Believe it or not, for our next celebrity live TV ban, there's a Wikipedia page for it. It's called the 2010 Tonight Show Conflict, and man, oh man, is it jam-packed with late-night talk show drama. Jay Leno had been the host of The Tonight Show since 1992, and Conan had hosted Late Night since 1993. Both shows had excellent ratings, but when Conan's contract was ending, NBC promised him that they would make O'Brien the host of The Tonight Show, which was huge because it was in a much better time slot, and it's obviously a dream for most talk show hosts to do that. However, they neglected to tell Leno about any of this. So when Jay's contract ended, they shifted Conan into The Tonight Show spot, and Jay ended up going before primetime news. Unfortunately, both shows started to tank in the ratings, causing the networks to get nervous. After watching their views decline, they panic and ask the host to switch back. Leno was for it, Conan O'Brien, not so much. He instead took another offer and started his own show simply called Conan. And the first rule he put in order, Jay Leno was banned.
At number 3, Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson has been blacklisted in Hollywood for a while now because of his racist and anti-Semitic remarks, as well as other allegations of misconduct that he's faced. Mel has mostly been out of the Hollywood spotlight in recent years, but last year he faced more allegations of discrimination by actress Winona Ryder. She spoke out in an interview about an encounter that she had with him where he called her a, quote, oven dodger, and made more insensitive remarks. In the interview, she went into more detail about some of the offensive things that Mel has said in regards to the LGBT community and people of Jewish faith. This prompted Mel to get cancelled again, though it really didn't make much difference since he's already so hated in Hollywood. These allegations are really nothing new for Mel, and so he stayed away from the spotlight, but I'm sure he won't be coming back because things like this just keep on happening.
In at number 2, Joan Rivers. The late great Joan Rivers was always a recurring and outstanding guest on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. His show was without a doubt what launched her career, and the two bonded over the years, with Rivers even getting the coveted spot on the couch next to Carson. However, when Joan was approached by several big television networks to start her own show, she did so without telling Johnny Carson. Many other guests had followed a similar trajectory, but each had asked for Johnny's blessing. Putting that on a shirt, they asked for Johnny Carson's approval, essentially. Johnny was devastated when Joan did this without telling him, namely because her show ran opposite him as competition. Carson then had NBC ban Joan Rivers from ever appearing on the show again, a rule that both Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien adhered to well after Johnny had passed away. Last but not least, at our number 1 spot, Kathy Griffin. Although the photo shoot had nothing to do with the live-to-air show, Kathy Griffin was blacklisted hard when this photo appeared online. In 2017, the comedian became a magnet for controversy after posting a photo of herself holding a ketchup-covered head that looked eerily similar to Donald Trump. I suppose the networks were frightened of this PR disaster, and so Leno, Conan, Ellen, The View, Live with Regis and Kelly, The Today Show, and Letterman all banned Kathy Griffin from coming on live TV. CNN would also go on to announce that they relieved Griffin of her New Year's Eve coverage duties, a job that she had with the network for close to a decade. President Donald Trump even responded to the graphic imagery when he tweeted this out. Kathy Griffin should be ashamed of herself. My children, especially my 11-year-old son, Barron, are having a hard time with this. Sick. Griffin did end up apologizing and said that even as a comedian, she knows that she crossed the line, adding, the image is too disturbing, I understand how it offends people, it was not funny, I get it.
Starting us off at number 10 is Steven Seagal. If you thought he was the type of guy who wouldn't share his negative opinions about a topic, then you thought wrong. He likes to express these emotions through humor, but one time his jokes did not win him laughs. They actually got him banned from Saturday Night Live. Back in 1991, he hosted the show and received some pretty harsh ratings for his appearance. His jokes rubbed people the wrong way, but apparently there was also reports that he was just difficult to work with. Some crew members said they disliked working with him and that he was the worst host to ever appear on the show. So the actor and martial arts guru got banned from the show altogether. Moving on to number 9, we got Vince Vaughn. Many people would say that he's a great actor, but rumor has it there are less charming things about him when he is not on our screens. Everyone is allowed their own opinion, and apparently the actor made it clear that he doesn't really approve of gay marriage and same-gender relationships in general. And he revealed some of these comments while doing an interview on the Ellen DeGeneres show. As you know, Ellen is happily married to another woman and is a huge influence in the LGBTQ community. Now, there's been no confirmation confirmation from the source herself, but reports were made saying that after the interview, he was banned from returning to her show for a few years. Climbing into our number 8 spot is Gary Busey. He's a man full of talent, but his erratic behavior does not always sit well with others ever since his tragic motorcycle accident that ended with severe brain damage back in 1988. Throughout different interviews, he's shown fans that he has multiple personalities, which some people might get a kick out of, but Howard Stern is not one of those people. Gary got banned from the Howard Stern show after one of his interviews where he displayed this wild and bizarre behavior. He picked up Howard's co-host in this weird bear hug stunt, and he also wrestled Howard himself to the floor, like in the middle of the interview. Just like put him on the floor. Howard has said he felt some guilt banning him from returning to his show, but admits that he just simply cannot handle it.
In at number 7, Howie Mandel. Now you'd think because these two were co-hosts on the show America's Got Talent that they would have bonded a little bit, but nope. In fact, they probably would have liked each other more if they had never even met. During an interview with Billy Bush and Kit Hoover on Access Hollywood, Pierce said, "I actually want to torture and dismember Howie. He is without a doubt the most annoying man in the history of planet Earth." Those are some harsh words, and after Howie pranked Pierce one too many times, he outright banned Mandel from ever appearing as a guest on his independent live shows.
Cruising into number 6 is Heather Mills. This one runs a lot deeper than just having bad behavior or a bad first impression. She was banned from the Piers Morgan show because she cheated on her husband. You're probably wondering why he would care about her love life so much. Well, her husband is actually his best friend. So you can imagine that would put him in an uncomfortable situation with having her on the show for interviews. So reports say after she cheated on his best friend, he banned her from being a guest on his show. Apparently, he's made some comments about the situation and said that she's just another, I quote, gold digger chasing wealthy gentlemen.
At number 5, Jussie Smollett. Former Empire actor Jussie Smollett has been in some hot water for a while following his scandal after he was caught making false police statements about an alleged hate crime against him. In January 2019, Jussie, who was openly gay, claimed that he was attacked by a group of people wearing masks who put a noose around his neck and shouted, "This is MAGA country." Well, after a police investigation ensued, they found that the claim was fake and that Jussie did all of this because he was unhappy about his salary from Empire. The charges against him for making a false report were eventually dropped, but similar charges emerged last year, and Jussie was indicted. As a result of the scandal and his crimes, Jussie was fired from Empire and has struggled to make things work for him in the industry since then. There was even a call to blacklist him from the entire industry, but maybe that formality isn't necessary since no one wants to work with him right now over fears of bad publicity.
Moving along to number 4, we have Piers Morgan. Yes, the roles have reversed. He throws around these bans on other celebrities, but he himself got one from Rosie O'Donnell. Now, the two of them don't actually have any beef with each other. Rosie banned him from the talk show, The Rosie Show, out of loyalty to one of her friendships. Turns out she's a good friend to Madonna, who got banned from Piers Morgan Live. I shared that story in our part 1 video. And since they are good friends, Rosie lashed back at Piers after finding out that Madonna got banned from his show and said that she was gonna ban him from hers.
In at number 3, Steven Seagal. Back in 1991, Steven Seagal wasn't chomping on carrots and using too much Just for Men in his beard. He was a big action star. So needless to say, most people were excited to see him hosting Saturday Night Live. Unfortunately, the cast found him extremely difficult to work with. Norm Macdonald even said that he told them he didn't want to be in any of the sketches, which is typically something that every host just does. He did eventually oblige their request, but the cast was so fed up with him that they almost did the show with no host at all. Seagal was then banned by Lorne Michaels immediately after for being, as he so eloquently put it, the worst host ever. In fact, in 2014, Michaels told New York Magazine that when Nicolas Cage was hosting, he worried that he wasn't doing well and said during his monologue that he hopes he wasn't the worst host ever. Without missing a beat, Lorne walked on stage to reassure him that no, that was Steve Seagal.
Taking over our number 2 spot is Martin Lawrence. It seems like NBC has no problem banning celebrity talent from Saturday Night Live if they are not pleased with their experience. Even the hilarious actor-comedian was banned from the network after he used inappropriate language that they said could risk the show's ratings. In his open monologue back in 1994, he made a reference to the female genitalia and also said some curse words, both things that were obviously not in the original script. He was banned from the show, and fortunately for the network, the inappropriate monologue was edited in a way so that they could take some of that out, so it didn't damage the ratings all that much, but some of it was still left in. Earning the #1 spot on our list is Bobcat Goldthwait. This one takes the cake. It's honestly pretty crazy, and I'm surprised I didn't know about it before researching for my list. Back in 1994, the comedian went on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and during the interview, he got infuriated when he heard that the Arsenio Hall show was being canceled. But he took his anger to a whole different level, and during the middle of the interview, he stood up, took out some lighter fluid, soaked his interview chair, and set the chair on fire. Maybe just the slightest bit dramatic, but to no surprise, he was banned appearing on the show ever again. He actually got fined, and he was forced to make a public service announcement in regards to fire safety.